Hello and welcome to the second episode of Quick Save, the gaming podcast where we're anything but quick. My name's Dylan Murphy, and as always, I'm joined by my trusty co-hosts, Tommy Campbell,
Yo.
Jake Campbell,
Hey.
and Tyler Allen.
What's going on?
Not much, man. How you doing? How we all doing?
I'm feeling
Doing
good.
Yeah?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
It's all right. It's a hot day. It's a warm day. It's a muggy day. But
It's Florida.
that's
Definitely a
Good
day.
old Florida heat.
true. That's true. All right, so for today's topic, I wanted to let the audience get to know us a little bit more, as well as our tastes. And I figured what better way to get that ball rolling than to share some of our favorite games of all time. So, Jake, would you care to start?
Yeah, no problem.
Cool.
I know last episode I kind of touched on it a little bit. Skyrim. It is my all-time favorite game. At this point in time, I played it so much to the point where I could go back and I could go the exact route where I would get a follower, make sure I get my archery trained up, be a sneak archer, the stereotype, of course, have to fit it. And basically make my way to being the most powerful being in the entire game, being a god amongst men. Obviously I have to vanquish evil at the same time. And yeah, so you would go against Alduin, and he is the world eater.
Mm-hmm.
And going up against this big threat that not everyone's heard of, not everyone has seen. And then you stroll into Helgen, basically getting ready to be on the chopping block, and then you see this gigantic black dragon just soaring through the sky, and then it lands on the tower in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then just sets the scene. Immediately they teased that big baddie. Now, then, obviously you go and make your way to fight him and eventually vanquish the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
The normal medieval story, you go and vanquish the big bad and then you're the hero. But you're not always going to be the hero that everyone wants you to be, right? You could go and be like a thief. You could be an assassin. You could be a mix of things if you want to be like a battle mage, like if you want to use magic and have a sword, whether it's magical or whether it's just a steel sword that you made yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's entirely up to you, and it's entirely at your disposal for this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know a big thing that a lot of people would do is they would try and glitch the potions to where they would use, they would mix all of the alchemy slots, right? All of the alchemy perks, and they would mix these potions to make it to where if they drink it, they're essentially invulnerable and they just won't die to anything they fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very big thing for a lot of people for a while. But yeah, I mean, that's my reason for it being my favorite, honestly, is just because there's endless possibilities. I could go back and there's probably still things that I even haven't found after buying the game twice and playing hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours into the game.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, yeah.
Still having that new sense of discovery in a game even today when it came out in 2011.
Yeah.
It really kind of sits with you, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, I specifically remember the intro to that game. I mean, it was pretty memorable compared to Oblivion's, which was pretty low key. Yeah, no, that the intro to Skyrim really set the bar for what to expect from that game. It's a great
Absolutely,
game. Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a meme.
It is still a meme. It is, yeah.
It's still
2011. Yeah, no, it's survived 9 years, 2 generations of consoles.
But rightfully so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely didn't see the same thing out of Oblivion.
No, or any of the Fallouts. No, it is kind of amazing. Skyrim is this touchstone of video game culture that not a lot of games get to that point, right? So it is pretty special and also a little ridiculous, and I'm definitely sick and tired of it. I don't think I'm sick and tired of Skyrim necessarily, but I'm ready for the new Elder Scrolls.
It's okay to be sick and tired of Skyrim.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Buy Skyrim.
And
Buy it.
Events.
Buy it again.
This
bought
is
it
not
so many
sponsored by
times.
Todd Howard.
Oh God. All right. Well, good pick, Jake. Tommy, what about you?
So, my list is in no particular order, but
Mhm.
I am going to drop the first one as my most favorite game of all time, which is World of Warcraft.
Okay.
And it really just comes down to like how the game has stuck with me through so many years. I started playing probably back, let's say 2006, 2007 is when I first started playing, and I didn't get all into it. I wasn't really aware, and I don't even think I had my computer at the time. So it was really just I went to a friend's house and they had an extra computer to play over there. And really, I think one of the biggest draws to me is having just community and getting in there just being this huge persistent game world. And last episode Tyler touched a little bit with Majora's Mask about how the world exists whether or not you're a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is absolutely such a true thing with World of Warcraft. It's the lore and everything too is something I'm really into. I love that the story is massive. There are still things to this day that I find out. I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Reading the lore on how that universe was started. I didn't actually play the Warcraft RTS games, so there was a lot of that lore for me to cover and read about. And just like I've met some really good friends in playing World of Warcraft that I've never met in person. I was invited to one of their weddings as a best man, and I've been playing with the same group really for like 5 or 6 years now, and it was just off a random chance spam invite to a guild when I didn't have one after coming back around Mists of Pandaria, and just joined the guild and ran with it. And I've been running with that group of people now, 5, 6 years later, and I can't imagine like what would have happened, how things might have changed if I maybe just didn't get that invite or didn't accept it. Would I have kept playing Warcraft like that? Would I have still be playing games with those people today? Because it's not like we don't even just stick to World of Warcraft, and some of their tastes and what they've shown me has really affected me now. So to just have an entire portion of like cut out because maybe I didn't take that opportunity to be a part of that community in that game,
Mm-hmm.
I really can't imagine it. So that the community and the world and the lore is why World of Warcraft is my number one favorite game of all time.
Good shit. Good reasons too. I mean, like I totally understand. And it is kind of crazy to think about how different things outside of that particular game would be if you hadn't met those people in a game, right? Like that's kind of nutty to think about.
Yep.
Oh shit. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it for a while.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Tyler, what about you?
I feel sort of obligated to list Super Smash Brothers Melee,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's a game that somehow, just despite the fact that there have been newer iterations of it, and it came out in 2001 on a console that's not even compatible with the TV in most living rooms at this point. It just managed to foster this like amazing community, online, and it's pretty easy to have found one offline, like when it came out. This is how most people experienced it, obviously, in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But just so many great memories playing that game, and the fact that I can still play it now, and it doesn't feel dated, despite the fact that there are new ones, or at least the core mechanics don't. Like obviously they fleshed out the the character roster and the stages and things like that. So the newer ones might feel like more complete packages, but that core gameplay, the actual fighting mechanics of Melee, just have stood the test of time so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just sort of a real representation of a game that was just made with so much love and passion, and has received so much love and passion back from its fan base. It's just managed to stay alive way, way longer than most of its contemporaries, I suppose.
I mean,
I don't think we talk about.
It
Well, go
outlived
ahead.
like Brawl, right? Like it outlived
Yeah.
its successor, and I think
Exactly.
things have changed now with Ultimate. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
raise the bar much higher than that. But
No, it's excellent.
the fact that
But-
Melee outlived Brawl in like the competitive community is kind of insane.
Absolutely, and I think without it, you wouldn't even have the community on Ultimate that you do. It's like with the rise of just streaming games and aired tournaments and whatnot. Like I
Mhm.
think I don't watch a lot of esports or anything like that, but I've definitely seen my fair share of Smash tournaments, and I know that just that in and of itself is just managed to bring this game to this level that just few can match. Honestly, it's just so good. It's still so fun to play. I will still snipe you with Peach right
Yeah.
off the edge with the turnips. It's good. It's good. I love it.
Good shit. Good shit. All right. All right. So for me, I think I'm gonna have to go with The Binding of Isaac, which should come as no surprise to any of you. I mean, it's
Right.
one of my most played games. I think I have over 1,000 hours on the 3 different platforms that I own it on. Like, it was definitely a moment for me. In a lot of ways, it was my introduction to the whole roguelike genre, which I've just fallen in love with over the last few years. And it's a fairly controversial game in terms of like content, right? I mean, it got heavy religious themes. I mean, it's got a naked baby in it, right? A crying naked baby in it, which is, definitely catches some ears when you talk about it.
Right.
But just the amount of gameplay in that game, I think, is just kind of astounding when you think about it. Because you can have like 100 runs, right, and spend hours and hours and hours and not see the same like item combinations that you would, the synergies, right? And that's, I think, for me in a lot of ways, is what brings me back, is the item synergy. I had never seen that before in a game. I had never experienced that before in a game. And really, I haven't experienced it since. There's just so much. The secrets, the unlockables. There's a lot of content in that game. And I honestly, I can't wait. I can't believe that, one, we're getting more content eventually in
Right.
the Anti-Birth, I think it's called, right?
think
Expansion that should be coming out this year, which is probably one of my most anticipated releases of the year, which is nuts. It's it started off as a Java game, right? Like, I don't know. It's
Like a
one of my favorite
Newgrounds
games. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's my favorite game without a doubt. I think above all is Binding of Isaac, which is
And I
just
wanna
kind of
say
weird to say.
You got a few of us into it too, like me
Absolutely.
and Tommy. Like, I remember when we would just watch you play it for a little while, right? And we would all be, over at Tommy's place, and then we would just watch you playing it.
Mhm.
And then we would power on, like, our PlayStations, and then we would all just be playing Binding of Isaac, just sitting, and not just like online. We would just be literally sitting together, like
3
on the
separate
couch and the chair,
PlayStations, you on your Mac
3
or something
PlayStations,
next to each other.
and we're all sitting there playing Binding of Isaac, just trying to see who has the coolest item synergies, and like if anyone got the best run going, we would all just kind of sit there for a minute, like, whoa.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that aspect. I don't think it doesn't happen very often that we get to do that, but like, yeah, those moments were definitely like something pretty special and weird and different, because yeah, it is for the most part a strictly single player game. There is some multiplayer component to it, but I don't think any of us have really tried it because it's kind of honestly lame. But yeah,
Yeah, it's not very, very good.
it's not great gameplay, but yeah, no, those moments are definitely special. Yeah,
And yeah,
I love that game.
You use tears as a weapon in that game,
You do. Oh, or pee.
or pee.
Or
That's
vomit.
blood, or vomit, or laser
there's
beams.
something to be said for that.
Poop.
Honestly,
Absolutely,
Poop,
poop
laser
is
beams.
yeah.
bombs,
Bombs,
Poop is everywhere.
Yeah, and I mean it's
literally and figuratively.
yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's pretty much like a Zelda clone, right? Not like I guess you could say a Zelda clone, like the OG Zelda, in terms of layout and frames and how the rooms work and some of the items even. It pays a lot of homage to past games, and it's just a great package, man. Love it. Back to Jake. Jake, what's your next one?
So my next one, Skyrim's going to be the all-time favorite, but the rest of them aren't really in any particular order.
Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and jump on that Rocket League train.
Mhm.
And Rocket League, I think I've put a combined, I want to say 700 hours between PlayStation and PC
Mhm.
at the very least. A lot of it, honestly, for me staying in the game really is because I got to play with you guys, like Tommy, Dylan. We used to play a lot of Rocket League.
Mhm.
I remember sitting there in the training, just keep going until I hit that 10 out of 10 in the striker to make some goals. Just and going up in difficulty and just watching me grow as a Rocket League player and being able to get to that ranked diamond spot, which is one of the second highest ranks that you can really get in the tiers, and getting that and having those moments where I would set up a goal over to Tommy and then he would just smash it in. I kind of touched on it a little bit last time.
Mhm.
Those were just super awesome moments where you had this whole fluid teamwork that you just knew something good was going to happen, and then it happened.
Mhm.
And then you got that satisfaction of, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, sorry.
It just had a lot of moments like those. It really showed how a lot of practice can pay off. Even getting into like probably the second half of me playing, learning aerials was probably one of the hardest mechanics that you can do in a very physics-based game,
Mm-hmm.
on top of just normal playing, like normal driving around, hitting the ball. It's not a very easy game to start, and then you have to sit there and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and it's not very easy at all.
No, I mean, it's a game that has a really high ceiling in terms of like skill, right? Like it takes a lot of skill to be able to fly, to do anything aerial wise, right? That was
Right, and
kind of
then
my
you would,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the aerial stuff, it's very challenging, to say it the least and to put it mildly. You would have to basically aim your car upward or like try and match your jump with when your boost activated, and there was a lot of skill and a lot of repetition that you would have to learn just to really make an impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Tommy, what you
So for this one, I'm gonna go back to Big Papa Blizzard.
got?
And this one is Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is one of those ones, like, I got into it when it came out, and it was a little bit of a mess when Diablo 3 first released.
A little bit.
The Real Money Auction House, just kind of wow when that came out.
Yeah.
I had some friends who made some money off it. No one did anything too crazy. Usually, I think most of them just made back the money they spent on the game, which is kind of cool to say, I guess. But it really took away from the game itself. And Blizzard did eventually end up righting that ship when they came out with the patch before Reaper of Souls. And I remember, if you had asked me maybe a year after Diablo had come out what I thought of it, I wouldn't have thought about it. It's
At all.
after playing it for a month, and I played Diablo 2 a little bit before leading up to the release of it because I was so excited to play it, and I haven't really gotten into ARPGs before that, so it was this whole new genre, and I was loving it, playing Diablo 2, getting ready for Diablo 3 to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Diablo 3 came out super cool, and playing through the different difficulties, getting ready to start running on what was it? Inferno, I think, was the difficulty, the highest difficulty back then. And I'm taking my monk, taking him in, and get to the second act of Inferno and just get demolished.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay, well, maybe I need some help. Maybe I didn't build right or something. And I joined my friend's game. And my friend is like, "You're playing a monk?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I think they seem pretty cool." And he's like, "You can't be in my game." Excuse me? You can't be in my game. You're going to make it harder for me. And he's abusing some kind of glitch to get through it. And I was really disturbed at first.
Right. Yeah, that's a little bummy.
What is going on here? So they turned it around so much when Reaper of Souls came out that the game it became like an ARPG that I loved. Like, Diablo 2 is really good, but I wouldn't have said it was my favorite, like I'm sure a ton of people think. But playing Diablo 3 and their update with that, I think it was like a 2.0 update, was so much fun and so incredible that I started just pouring hours into it. Every season that came out, I would be logging 100 to 200 hours in at least. And as of right now, I want to say like season 20, 21 up there, and I go back every season and play. Maybe not for as long as I used to, but I still love playing it because I do enjoy that kind of starting over and getting to see your character progress. Even though I know everything that's out in it, I strictly play anything but Witch Doctor because I don't like Witch Doctors. But everyone else is awesome, and I can like being able to identify a legendary just by how it looks in your inventory, even with the question mark in front of it, and be like, I don't even need that. Like, and just developing. Really, it comes down to just character progression and watching your character grow stronger, and just that sweet, sweet loot grind. Just give me drops.
Yeah.
I need them.
Yep.
And that was the problem with like a lot of
More stuff.
vanilla D3 was like it didn't give you as much stuff, right?
It did not, no,
Yeah.
because they were trying to
Force the auction
balance
house.
balance that out with the real money auction house. That you got too many items, well then their
Mhm.
auction house going to tank because they were taking off a little percentage of it. But I'm so happy that they got rid of it. And what's crazy is they didn't actually they wrote off the game before Reaper of Souls even came out, because it got infinitely more popular when Reaper of Souls came out, but they had already started moving on to their next projects. Which is insane. They actually had written it off just before Reaper of Souls came out, not expecting to see the success of what Reaper of Souls and that update and changing the path of it would do to it. And so, good and bad.
Mhm.
Bad, we didn't see anything past the Necromancer character drop in Diablo 3. Good, because we got the announced for Diablo 4 not too long ago, and it's, we need it soon, Blizzard. Soon, please.
That would be nice. It does look good. It does sound good. And it sounds more my speed, right? Like I jumped in with you. I think we all did at the beginning of D3, and it was kind of whatever.
A little
and-
rough.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mhm.
And I definitely came back with Reaper of Souls, but I never got nearly as into it as you. I mean, you're still playing it. You're still doing the seasons, right?
Still
Like,
go back. Yep.
That's nuts. It's definitely without a doubt like a quality game, and definitely fits within Blizzard's wheelhouse, right?
hmm
And it makes me excited for what's to come. All right, Tyler, what do you got?
I've got Fallout New Vegas listed next.
Okay.
That's definitely like a solid placement. I feel like New Vegas is probably one of the best examples of like a game actually offering player agency, and just the idea that you actually have an impact on the world that you're inhabiting in that game. With the way that the faction system played out, and how it kind of built off of the karma system from Fallout 3. So basically, there's certain parts of that map that you can't go to without problems if you make certain decisions in that game. And I thought that kind of dynamicism, especially which is almost 10 years ago at this point, was really cool. And it's been kind of hard to like. I feel like I haven't seen it super often since then either. It does happen, but and just the writing. Oh my God, the writing in that game was so good. I feel like there's so many subplots that have just stuck in my memory since I first played them, which is not necessarily something I can say for a lot of other side quests,
Mhm.
in other games. So, there's just so much to offer there. It still hasn't gotten old, and thankfully the modding community has kind of favored Bethesda games in general, that one included. And so you can up-res things and kind of make it look a little bit more modern if you want to spice it up a little bit. And I mean, good writing is timeless. The Americana themes throughout the entire Fallout franchise just sit super well with that. Like fit really nicely into that game. I really liked how a lot of the morality in it seemed sort of like gray too. There wasn't like clear cut good and bad guys. There was just several different factions, all with their own intentions and way of operating, and some were clearly more savory than others. But there was still nothing felt truly black and white or good and evil, and that to me is just representative of some really careful writing and just game design. It's just awesome. It's still so good.
One of the things that I remember fondly about it is it kind of like pulled back in scope too, compared to like Fallout 3, where it's a more personal story, right? You're just kind of trying to get back at the guy who shot you, right?
Exactly. And that's something that what was wonderful about it is that, like, I mean, it doesn't matter what your like who you are, like no one wants to get shot. It's a very easy it's an easy thing to sympathize with. So like when you put yourself in those shoes, like you don't have to sort of, you know, mentally block out the theme like that you would in maybe Fallout 3 where, I have to go hunt for my dad. Like, there's a higher potential for the player to not be personally connected to a story about that than there is about, well, you just got shot and this person brought you back to life and you can go find the person who shot you, or you can just not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the game starts. It's just open enough,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gives you that freedom of player choice because maybe not a lot of people would want to go, get back at the person who shot them because maybe they think that it might happen again. They might get shot again and then they might not be so lucky to just be brought back to life magically,
Yeah, exactly. It seems as though Obsidian really had an interest in maintaining the role playing element of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that is just super apparent throughout. And especially now that we've had a few Fallout games released since then, that I feel the agency may not have been quite as uh, robust, or I don't know how to phrase it. There's not quite as much player agency. Not that they're bad games necessarily, but um, yeah, it just I think it still holds up, especially if you like narrative driven role playing games.
Absolutely.
Pokemon Soul Silver is definitely, in my opinion, I think the perfect Pokemon game. And I don't think Game Freak as developers can replicate that again in the I want to say in the 3D space, but I just don't think in general that they could. And maybe that's just because of when I played Soul Silver, how I played Soul Silver, where I am now. I think it's just kind of hard to replicate that game. We got two continents, right? 16 badges. The Pokemon following we haven't seen again till what? Let's Go, Pokemon Eevee, Pikachu, and even that was like only the 150 original, right? Like,
right.
Yep.
There's a lot that could be said about a lot of the more recent Pokemon games, but Pokemon Soul Silver is the bar for me, and I don't ever foresee them topping it. Like it, maybe they'd have to do another Silver and Gold remake, but I don't even want that shit.
No,
don't want it. But I would love to see like Johto recreated in a 3D space if we're ever going to get to revisit that land. That would be super cool to see. But nah, man, Pokemon Soul Silver is top tier Pokemon game without a doubt.
I'm gonna go ahead and go next tier. Persona 5.
Okay.
Persona 5. You always remember the soundtrack when you're playing any Persona game. It always has that upbeat, funky kind of vibe to it, and it's Persona 5. It was actually the only Persona game that I've personally played, but for me, I remember you telling me about it, Dylan, and actually just letting me borrow the game, and going and playing through that first, I was a little weird about it because I didn't really know what was going on, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
You're this kid that's going to school and then you're somehow in a prison and you're like, what is going on? And then you kind of get the vibe like, oh, this isn't actually reality. This isn't really the real world right now. This is a different, distorted kind of place with different kind of beings and everything. And distortions. And going through it and playing it has this kind of turn-based Pokemon, similar to Pokemon kind of style of gameplay where it's like turn-based, you have your little moves, you have your type advantages, of course. But at the same time, there was something that really drew me in, whether it was the art style or just the general story about your character. At first, it was, you were just kind of, on probation. You're being watched over because you did you like punch somebody. That's really what you did. You just punched somebody.
You saved a woman from an encounter, and then you got sued.
you fucked around and you got smoked. And then going through that and then really seeing that, hey, sometimes people are crooked. Sometimes you find yourself on the wrong side of things, and it's maybe for the better, maybe for the worst.
Mhm.
And to me, like, going through that story, meeting all of the characters, being able to build up a relationship with those characters, whether it's like, whether it doesn't really mean much to you or it does, they do share a lot. And it actually gave the whole game this sort of personality versus just like each individual character. Like the whole theme came together and matched up. And I think ending it, I think it tied a bow perfectly on top of this greatly wrapped present.
Mhm. See, I wouldn't know. I never finished it. But I'm glad you did, right?
Yeah.
And you definitely took something away from it. You got something from it. And I'm just so happy that I introduced you to a game that I didn't necessarily expect you to fall as much in love with as you did.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Saw it
Persona,
coming.
yeah, Persona is a very special series, for sure. I mean, Tyler introduced me, like years ago, and it was definitely a game that I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, and very
My bad.
quickly, no, very quickly, yeah, it's something.
Like playing one of those games just turns into a phase of your life. It's not really just
100%.
playing a game.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there are 100-hour plus campaigns, which is a lot to
Oh,
ask
yeah.
of. But
Just the feeling of going and charging into fighting the final boss, and you have this unique song
mhm,
that you charge into every single time.
mhm,
And it's a little song you've heard before, just regular like fighting the boss, but now it has lyrics.
mhm,
And now it's a little different. So like the stakes are up and you're rushing to that boss fight. You went through this whole area and the big baddie's coming.
mhm,
And you're going and then you just absolutely demolish this big bad guy. You get that satisfaction. You
mhm.
get the satisfaction of finally winning.
That you're talking about that game in this con, like, in 2020, like with that sort of optimism, knowing that it's a turn-based RPG, which
Mhm.
is not all but died, but like there's definitely a pretty large community that's into them. But I feel like Persona 5 definitely outgrew its niche. Like
Oh yeah.
it became like a phenomenon. It's Atlas's best-selling game, so that's yeah. I mean, it deserves it too. That game just drips with style, man.
Oh.
It just looks so good and sounds so good.
I've never seen someone cosplay as a game menu screen before, and there is someone who is cosplayed as the
I'm gonna have to see that
Persona
for
5.
myself.
Yeah. No,
I love
it's
that.
phenomenal. And yeah, like you said, the style, like this thing, yeah, just drips style, in pretty much every aspect.
Yeah, there's nothing that's not like Persona about it, and I love that. I love its like stark identity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even all of them are kind of like they have their own identity like that because it's not like 5 looks like 4, and 4 doesn't look like 3,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's cool. That's
Yeah.
a good choice, Jake.
Absolutely. And to think that it has crossed over, Joker is a guest character in a Super Smash Brothers game, right? Like, that's nuts. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember that reveal event and just my jaw was on the floor. Like, I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought they were announcing Persona 5 for the Switch, which would have been just as cool. But to see, yeah, that.
Saw it coming.
Yeah. So cool. Such a cool game. Great pick, Jake. Great pick. What you got, Tommy?
So for my next one, it is probably out of all the games on my list, the shortest game time that I've played, I guess. It's gonna be God of War.
Mm-hmm.
God of War is one of the and this is the more recent one, 2018 release. It's probably one of the most incredible just single player story games that I've played. I wouldn't personally call it an RPG.
Mhm.
Not to say that it isn't or that other people might consider it
Has
differently.
some elements, right?
Yeah. But I felt when I started playing it that it was the controls, the story, everything came together in such a fantastic way that I couldn't put it down. It was and even down to like how long the story was. I want to say I beat the game probably about 70-80% of the content in the game too, about like 30-35 hours, which at the time and the way I was playing games felt, even the time itself felt perfect because it wasn't too long that I would get discouraged or maybe fall out of the game, but it wasn't too short where we've seen some games with like maybe a 10 or 15 hour story.
It didn't overstay its welcome.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
It just it progressed along at a really great pace. It gave you the little bit of freedoms here and there in case you didn't want to keep pushing on that main story.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say like the gameplay in that game was just absolutely incredible. Using the Leviathan axe, being able to just freely flow from tossing that axe, getting into that hand-to-hand combat brawling, and you're throwing hands with these monsters, and all of a sudden you hit one button, that axe is coming right back to you, and even just to the subtle like the feeling of the vibration of the controller as that axe hits your hand, and you go just back into swinging and cleaning it up with it. It's just it really hit everything I wanted out of the game, and I haven't like it is now my pinnacle for if I'm thinking about a single player story game. Like it has to compare to that, and that is my scale right now. Is how does it compare to God of War? Then like there are games like Skyrim is close, Witcher is close, but when I played God of War, like that was it for me as far as like a single player story. So it's one of my favorite games. Like I feel like I could just repeat and play through that story a ton of times and still love it.
And the
I'm right
detail
there
in
with
that
you.
game, like even like going back to what Tommy was saying, when you would throw the axe and then you would call it back to you, you could still hit another enemy while it was coming back to you. And
Mhm.
just the detail behind that, and then like that first combat instance where you're swinging the axe, it's so fluid to where you feel like it's very realistic, and it looks, even on a PlayStation, it looks like it's like maybe even higher than 60 frames. Like it's so fluid, and even just a simple punch or like a little fist fight real quick, it looks very realistic, and it feels so satisfying in every combat encounter to win.
No, the game's fantastic, and I mean, did you guys play any of the original God of War games? 1, 2, 3, Ascension, any of them?
I played the
I played
third one.
some of 2 and 3
Yeah. Okay.
Once.
I feel like it's a little bit harder to compare, 3, 2, even 1, like all 2. This one, especially
Mhm.
because it's vastly different in terms of like how the combat is, how even the camera angles, and just genuinely everything is just for the most part different, other than those little scenes where it's like press this button, all right, now press this button, and then press this button. Like that's really the only similarity I really noticed gameplay wise to the older God of War games, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different camera, totally different like
Totally
combo
different,
system.
honestly.
Like, yeah.
Way more serious than in this one than it was in the previous ones.
Mm-hmm. No,
I think it was serious overall. I think this one was just kind of more somber. We see
Mhm.
Kratos as less of just a weapon himself and more of an actual character, and we see a lot of development. And I think that's why this God of War stuck out to me so much more than the other ones. Is we see that character development. It's not just okay, cool. We've been polishing up this weapon for 3 games to strike out at these perceived bad guys.
Mhm.
And I think everyone loves a redemption story, and I feel like it really did strike that chord because you do see him as just this monster for 3 games, and in in this God of War, you see him. He's grown. He has a kid, and you see him just kind of trying to be that normal person, staying away from that limelight, realizing and trying to atone almost for those mistakes. But but his sole focus is at that point just taking care of his son, and seeing that progression, seeing all the different things that happen as he goes, and the subtle little call outs in the story as they're switching and changing almost all of the lore that they're now using because they've switched from one part of mythology to another too, and having to see maybe the similarities and maybe where some points would cross. I think the whole thing was a lot of fun to go through.
I agree. And to your kind of what I always thought with God of War was I mean, obviously it's a great game, a fantastic game on its own, but is it elevated that much more because of where it came from, right? Like
I think it
it's
definitely does, because it is making those callbacks. Like even when you're in just generally playing, everyone kind of can pick up that, hey, you're not from here. Like
Mhm.
you're definitely from somewhere else.
And I feel like even if you hadn't played the previous games, as long as you're in the gaming, like in the sphere or ecosystem, right, you're aware of who Kratos is and what those games are like. So you kind of have that like going in, right? You have that little bit of knowledge, and I think that I mean, just the character development, yeah, for Kratos in that game is just phenomenal. I feel like we could actually just talk about an entire episode on God of War. Well, 3 of us could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyler.
Yeah. It was never my favorite series. I don't know. Something never clicked. I really like the PS4 one. I like the direction they took. Where it's like you look at Kratos' right shoulder most of the game, but the other games just felt so button mashy and just kind of like I don't know. I don't want to sit here and bash them. I definitely understand the appeal. It's just not my type of game.
No, 100%.
But man, the new one is actually something I would like to finish. I booted it up because I got it for like $7 one day on the PS Network thing.
That's a steal.
Yeah, bro. So it's something I want to reboot because I got about halfway through and was really impressed with what I'd seen. Also, boy.
Boy.
All right, Tyler, what do you got?
Last one. It's gonna actually be Stardew Valley.
Okay.
Which I was kind of on the fence about, but after some thought, I realized this is a game that I like can't help but just play for like weeks once I boot it up. And I might not play it consistently, but something about that day-to-day schedule is almost like addictive. So I'm not sure if I like it as much as I am just periodically hooked on it, just because something about just like, okay, well, I just got to do this one more thing. I'm just going to water these plants real quick. All right, well, I'm just going to, I just got to sell this stuff real quick. Well, it couldn't hurt to clear out a few more branches in my farm so it looks a little bit better. Well, it couldn't hurt to just add a path here. Well, I guess I could also just like add this chicken coop, and then it's March. And, shit. It's just, it has like such a like hypnotic game loop that I think I didn't play any Harvest Moon games, so I've basically heard that it's just Harvest Moon, and that's all there is to it. But I don't know. I don't have that kind of context. It's just got a very enticing gameplay loop, and the gradual progression that you make is very interesting and has a good visual representation, since it's usually in terms of like different farm equipment, or it might save you time, like the automatic sprinklers and things like that. All these sort of like little mundane items become so important when the core focus of your game is something as sort of just like laid back as farming, virtual plants or something. And it's just, I don't know, I kind of like games that sort of just take a back seat and aren't necessarily just trying to like blow your mind every second of the game. This is a little bit more laid back and meditative, and I like that. It's kind of a cool antithesis to some of the other stuff we've talked about today.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of a complete 180 from a lot of these games that we've talked about. It's nice when a game can just kind of sit back and relax and be confident in that gameplay style.
Right.
Nice.
Especially because it's a game that doesn't really rush you or anything. You can pretty much take it at your own pace.
You can't
do
lose.
Really what you want to do.
Yeah, there's no high stakes.
Yeah, you can't really lose either.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice.
Exactly.
All right. Well, so for my last game, it's definitely the most recent one. It's definitely one totally unexpected for me. Apex Legends. I was a huge fan. I missed out on Titanfall because I didn't have an Xbox One. And definitely, I mean, when Titanfall 2 came out, I was there day one. I hold the single player aspect of Titanfall 2 in such high regards. I think it's one of the best first person shooter campaigns ever, both narratively and mechanically, and gameplay wise. It's short, brisk, whatever. All right, it's not about Titanfall 2. That world, though, that lore, though, is so interesting and is expanded in Apex Legends. And that's not even like the aspect that I love the most. The thing about Apex Legends is it evokes memories of like Modern Warfare 2 in a lot of ways, where that was a multiplayer game that I really dove into and was probably my first multiplayer shooter experience. And then just getting to share that with all of you. Honestly, I think we all played Modern Warfare 2 back in the day. Is kind of where we all started. So Apex Legends brings that back. All of a sudden, we're getting into the strategy of things. It's a game I've put 850 hours into in a year, right? Like that's unheard of. Like that's insane. It's a game that there's so much to learn. There's always some new strategy to learn, some new little quirk with a character, all the different dynamics of the characters, their personalities, and hundreds of wins later, I'm still getting that rush from a victory, right? Like that does not get old. Sure, it's one of the most frustrating games I currently play or have ever played. And that's just because I care so much about my play. I want to constantly be improving, and it is, outside of a few little weird things, if I lose, it's my fault. I played wrong. I wasn't in the right position. My aim was off, right? Like I wasn't paying attention to the group we're engaging with.
Right.
I just think it's made me a better player. Overall, I think just in shooters across the board. And I cannot wait to play more. Like 850 hours in, I can't wait for the next 1,000 hours.
Absolutely.
And I can definitely see that being the case. Apex Legends is my favorite multiplayer game of all time, and I don't see it being topped anytime soon.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you
Respect.
go. Yeah. So for our final segment, I just wanted to do a quick run through of what are you playing? So let's start it off. Jake, what are you playing?
So right now, I'm actually in between a couple of games right now. A new release that came out pretty recently, Mountain Blade Bannerlord. You pretty much, it's kind of like a medieval simulator. Like it's like a lot of knights, a lot of like lords of the land. You're basically in like this civil war type feud, or you can coexist with one another. It's pretty much anywhere in between on that. And your biggest aim is to pretty much just be the biggest ruler in the land. And, on top of multiplayer games like Apex Legends, Heroes of the Storm, those are a little bit more on the casual side, but I'm really focusing on the Mountain Blade right now.
Nice. I heard a lot of great things. Definitely. Not my speed, but I mean, I definitely see why people love that franchise and have been clamoring for this game for 60 years now.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I get that. Tommy, what are you playing?
Also playing Bannerlord, and development cycle 8 years.
8 years? Good Jesus. They announced
it's
it
been
8
a
years ago,
long-
or it's been in development for 8 years?
Development for 8 years.
Okay.
We went a long time without hearing anything, and an equally long time waiting for an actual release date. And we're still only in early access right now at that.
Okay.
But nonetheless, still plays really fun, enjoying it. That's kind of my single player game right now. We'll add that I did just buy Hades and Dead Cells very recently, as in within the last hour recently.
Oh, during the podcast?
Yes, during the podcast. Multiplayer games, playing Apex, playing Heroes of the Storm, and just renewed my sub for World of Warcraft a few days ago, so I'm getting into that.
A lot on your plate. A lot of things on your plate.
Filling out that backlog.
I'll be in all of them.
I am honestly looking forward to you playing Hades and hearing what you have to say about that. That'd be fun. All right, cool. Tyler, what are you playing?
So I've been playing, I've actually been replaying Subnautica to try to capture some footage for a video I'm working on. And other than that, I've actually been playing that Modern Warfare Warzone mode quite a bit.
Yeah, okay. We played a bit of it too.
Yeah, I've actually been having a lot of fun with that.
It's got a lot of really cool ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, look, when it comes to multiplayer, I'm pretty easy. It just that happened to be the game that people were inviting me to play, so that's just what I'm on.
Helps that it's free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Because if it wasn't, then nah. But I'm also playing. I've been playing Shin Megami Tensei 4.
Okay.
On and off, and Animal Crossing as well.
Of course.
Yeah, I think Animal Crossing is sort of just like I check in every day because I got to see what fresh threads are at my clothing store to make sure that my wardrobe is, top motherfucking notch. I'm always looking fresh as shit in that game. But yeah, I'm actually trying to do something with SMT4. So great game. If you have a 3DS, put it to use. Go download it on the eShop. It's like $20.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. It's like the best RPG I've played in a long time. Such good writing.
You might get me to crack my 3DS back open.
Dude, okay. If you like Persona, you like that.
I do like some Persona.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well,
what are you playing, Dylan?
For me, I'm same boat. I am playing Animal Crossing New Horizons to death. Definitely, I think it fits that style that Tyler brought up with Stardew Valley earlier. Like, just that, I'm going to make this path. Oh, I'm going to plant these trees.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to talk to these villagers. Like, it's just a constant loop of, like, what can I do over here?
I'm going to make this neighborhood.
Right, yeah. A neighborhood, a secret garden. Tom Nook refuses to give me a cafe, so I've made my own, right? I'm plotting against one of my villagers right now. I'm kind of making my own narrative within Animal Crossing, too, and it's just... absolutely. I loved the GameCube version. Didn't get super into it, but I enjoyed it. Loved New Leaf. Still didn't really get into it. I don't think I even came close to putting in as much time as I have currently with New Horizons in New Leaf. And I honestly don't see it stopping anytime soon. But on top of that, I've also decided that I was going to give it one more shot. And I am currently going through Persona 5 Royal. And that has been super cool so far.
There you go.
It just feels real good to get back into that. Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's been our second episode of Quick Save. Went a bit long, so we're gonna try to find a happy medium there. But
yeah,
I want to thank you guys for coming and chatting with me, and thought we had a good talk. And thank you guys for listening. And remember, good luck, have fun.